very much. Okay, moving on here. Today's program took up 1 minute of your time, young ladies, so why don't you start moving up here. Today's program is Attracting Millennials to Rotary, Mariah Gillespie. Okay, about her very briefly, music education. She has an MA, she has Miss Mariah's music, business here that she started and owns. She joined us in January 2018. Her sponsor is Jeff Tyler. She's on 7 committees. She has spoken at 7 clubs around, also 8 clubs and a membership rally and a district conference. So we are the last place she's speaking this year. Here's the mic, here's the clicker.
Thank you. As Ivan said, I have talked about millennials to groups of Rotarians 8 times around San Diego, from Vista to Fallbrook to Point Loma to Chula Vista. And I have to say that I'm relieved to finally be back home, speaking to a room full of smiling and familiar faces. Because what I'm going to talk about today involves change and young people. And I found throughout my travels that some Rotarians don't like those 2 things. Rotary was founded in 1905 when Paul Harris and 3 friends met in a downtown Chicago office. And 82 years later, in 1987, women were finally allowed to join. And you know why? Because the US Supreme Court ruled that Rotary clubs could not exclude women from membership on the basis of gender. That's why. High Court rules that Rotary clubs must admit women. Change and Rotary have not always gotten along. But I'm here today to tell you that millennials, as bad of a rep as we sometimes get, just might be the change that Rotary needs. Here are the topics that I'd like to cover. 1, what is a millennial? 2, why do we want millennials in Rotary? 3, why would millennials want to be in Rotary? And 4, what are we doing to get them to join? Question 1, what is a millennial? A millennial is between the ages of 22 and 37 years old. Millennials are the largest generation of living adults in the United States. Millennials are the largest generation of living adults in the United States. There's more of us than any other group. But watch this. Who here is a millennial? There's about 10 of us. Our club has 267 members and 4% of us are millennials. More than half the people in this room are between the ages of 60 and 79, with 30% of us in the 70s and 28% of us in the 60s. But this is not unusual. Internationally, 6% of Rotarians are under the age of 40. 6% of all Rotarians on this entire planet are under the age of 40. And I know what some of you are thinking, who cares? So what? That's what Rotary is. Question 2, why should Rotary want millennials to join? What do you need us for anyway? We're just a bunch of selfie-snapping smartphone addicts anyway, right? Millennials are often labeled as a generation of crybabies and suck-ups, sheltered and supervised. The media portrays millennials as lazy, entitled narcissists who still live with their parents. Time Magazine, 2013. But here's another magazine cover, America's New Great Awakening, the Me Decade. Does anyone recognize it? New York Magazine, 1976. We've always struggled to understand the generations that follow us. When I tell my friends that I'm in Rotary, and to be perfectly honest, when I first considered joining Rotary, my immediate reaction was that Rotary was just a bunch of orange and turquoise people that wrote fat checks to charity. Stereotypes can work both ways. But we're not so bad, us millennials. And I'm gonna tell you why by, big shocker here, talking about myself. Perhaps by examining the life trajectory of a millennial, I can help you to understand who we are as a generation and why, in fact, you might actually want us around. So you get another Who Am I all over again, this time without the rhymes, if you recall my last. I went to college at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, go blue, and I majored in music. My last semester of undergrad, I studied abroad in Australia. When my 4 months was up, I had my bachelor's degree, and I was ready to take on the world. But it was 2009, and the world that I grew up in the United States didn't have a job for me. Don't come home, my friend said. Living with my aunt, still looking for a job, I read online. Deferring student loans, no job yet, I was told. And it's true. Millennials are numerous, diverse, highly educated, and drowning in student loan debt. Our generation shoulders student loans to the tune of $1.5 trillion. Overeducated and underemployed, that was what my peers and I faced in 2009. In November 2009, the national unemployment rate hit 10.2%, the highest in 26 years. My peers in the States took jobs they didn't love because that's what was out there. And some of those jobs didn't pay enough to support rising housing costs. So some moved to different cities for work. Michigan was particularly brutal. Some went back to school, and some had no choice but to move home with their parents. As for me, I stayed in Australia, where the economy was strong and the beer was flowing. Went to grad school. I worked 30 hours a week to support myself, went to school full-time, earning my master's in journalism, published my first article in a national magazine, interned at the Sydney Entertainment Centre, and taught music lessons on the weekend with Yamaha Music Australia. And all this is preserved because back then, blogging was cool. Now the next chapter of my life is indicative of many millennials, not just myself, because social media was on the rise. And it was starting to have an impact on the world beyond posting pictures of pancakes. In fact, my thesis in grad school was Facebook, the new face of news. And it was a valid question. Back then, in 2010, 4% of traffic from news sites came from Facebook. And back then, that was a big deal. My part-time work during grad school had been with the recruitment company, an old school office with old school ways. So as part of my digital media studies, I opened a Twitter account for them, started tweeting jobs, found a candidate on Twitter, and made a placement. And the job that I tweeted, the one job that our clients just could not fill, was for a social media manager. And back then, that title didn't even exist. When I finished grad school, I got a job at a web agency that specialized in building websites for recruiters. They used SEO, search engine optimization, to help recruiters attract candidates online. And that tweet got me thinking. I asked my CEO to take a chance on me, and he did. JXT recruits social media strategists. That was a headline in a national recruitment magazine. Today, a company would make headlines for not having a social media strategist. So I started a social recruiting division at my company, and before long was speaking all over Australia on how to utilize social media in recruitment. Back home, LinkedIn was blowing up, and jobs were starting to be filled again, but they were being filled through social media and social networking. Eventually, I made my way to San Diego, worked for Qualcomm and their social media department, and 4 years ago, I left the corporate world to fulfill my lifelong dream of being a piano teacher full-time. Now I run my own music school, and I get to do what I love every single day. I'm also a city commissioner. I play the harp, and last year I performed in a solo piano recital. I'm in 8 Rotary committees. I've been to South Africa, facilitated Vila, and I read with kids once a week through Everyone a Reader. The point is, we aren't all lazy. Question 2 is, why do you want millennials in your club? Why wouldn't you? We have fresh ideas about the direction and future of Rotary. We grew up in a time of rapid change, head-spinning technological advances, and expanding access to the world. And according to a recent Millennial Impact Research report, 84% of millennials surveyed had made a charitable donation in the previous year. And that's a higher percentage than the generation before us. And 70% had spent time volunteering. Younger members are the lifeblood of Rotary's future. And, to be quite frank, their survival of not just Rotary, but of this very club depends on younger members joining. 2 takeaways from my Who Am I? 1, not all millennials are entitled narcissists. Some of us work hard, thank you very much, and a lot of us want to make a difference in the world. And my other point is that social media has had a huge impact in our lives, both personally and professionally. It's how we meet people. It's how we find jobs. For me, it was my job. It's where we go to get our news. It's where we go to post our news. And over the years, as social media and technology have evolved, millennials have evolved with it. We expect immediate access to information in real time. We don't read, we skim. We don't search, we scroll. We don't look, we glance. We spend about 2 seconds on each item in our feeds. We have a device in our pocket that is capable of accessing almost the entirety of information known to man, and we can get it within seconds. And you know what? We're used to that. Question 3, why would millennials want to be in Rotary? To me, this is the easiest of all the questions to answer. Networking opportunities, career advancement, personal growth, relationship building, fun and fellowship, continuing education, giving back to our communities, leadership opportunities, just to name a few. You have experience, we want guidance. Who here works in the finance industry? Really? Oh, can someone tell me what a Roth IRA is, please? Who here works in real estate? It's gotta be more than that. If and when I can ever afford my first Coronado home, I would love your help. And finally, does anyone here own their own business? Wonderful. So do I, and I would love to sit down with you and pick your brain. In fact, I get to sit down with you guys. Every week I sit at a table with you, and I get to pick your brains about your years and years of experience. Honestly, Rotary is an easy sell, except it's not something the millennials want to buy. Which leads me to question 4. How is Rotary getting millennials to join? I just listed all of these amazing reasons why young people would want to join Rotary. Yet, we all saw the statistics. 4%. How can we get them to join? Consider time and money. When my friends ask about my Rotary adventures, I rave and I rant and I beg and I plead and I brag and I boast, but it's very difficult to convince them to join. And time after time, friend after friend, 2 reasons remain constant: time and money. Many millennials are either just recently or are about to really establish themselves in their careers. We're nearing the top of the ladder with VP positions, 1 client away from making partner, or, like me, have started their own business. That means lots of hours, lots of work, lots of time. And that's just one scenario. Consider family life. A recent New York Times article stated that women with college degrees now have children an average of 7 years later. In the 1970s, the median age at which people were married was 23. In the 2010s, that age was 30. So millennials may be right at the cusp of busting their butts for their careers and starting families. Young families, babies, toddlers, diapers, teething. Young families plus peak of career does not equal time. So flexibility is key. And in that department, we are absolutely nailing it. We have hugely successful alternate meetings. We have social hours, wine tastings, service opportunities at any given hour. Read with kids during the day, serve the homeless at night, clean the beach Saturday morning, attend a Wednesday lunch meeting or a Tuesday dinner meeting. We have 60 committees, and our service projects range from local to regional to international. When it comes to flexibility, Coronado's got options. The other thing for clubs to consider when attracting millennials is cost. We value our time and our money because with blossoming careers and/or young families, both are in high demand. This is especially true in San Diego. Housing and renting prices are outpacing wages. More than 80% of us have student loans. The average price to rent a 1-bedroom apartment in San Diego is $1,968. In Coronado, $2,400 for a 1-bedroom apartment, 700 square feet. According to the National Association of Realtors, about 67% of people moving to San Diego are millennials, but only 2% can afford to buy the medium price home. When it comes to home ownership, in fact, millennials are 8 to 9 percentage points lower than previous generations at the same point in their lives. Not because we don't want to, but partially because we can't afford it. high rent, student loans, and remember that we grew up in the midst of foreclosures and evictions, graduated into a recession, and even if we can afford a down payment on a house here, it's terrifying to think that the recession might happen again. May 31st of this year, the Washington Post reported that the average millennial has a net worth of $8,000. Education expenses have risen 65% in the past decade. Food costs have jumped 26%. Healthcare is up 21%. Housing jumped 16%, and transportation 11%. And now there are additional expenses that most consumers didn't have 20 years ago. Smartphones, Wi-Fi, data plans. Millennials are putting off buying houses and starting families, not necessarily because we want to, because it's difficult to afford. The idea that someone can go to college, get a job, work our way to the top of that same job, get married, buy a house, have kids, all by the time we're 30, doesn't exist anymore. At least not in San Diego. In my Rotary travels throughout San Diego, I've discovered many different meeting structures. And these are just a few examples. And I'm not saying that any structure is better than the other, because different club structures means more flexibility. I mean, I don't have to be in the Coronado Rotary. I could join any of these clubs. For our club and the San Diego club, members pay only for the meetings they attend. In other clubs, members pay for all of the meetings, whether they attend or not. In La Mesa, going to a meeting but not paying for a meal is an option. That's nice. Because even when I do convince my friends to come to Rotary with me, I give them the details and the very next words out of their mouth are, "You have to pay to go to meetings?" Please don't throw anything at me. I know that the foundation of Rotary is service and fellowship, and part of fellowship includes a meal, and meals cost money. But I'm just telling you with genuine sincerity the real reactions of my peers when it comes to the cost of being in Rotary. And it's not great. $1,000 a year just to attend meetings. One friend said, "I don't want to be forced to spend money on myself to attend meetings where the whole point of the organization is to give to others." And she's right. It's a lot to spend on ourselves, considering our slogan is service before self. As you all know, we pay $15 or $30 to attend a meeting. And a good Rotarian such as myself wants to attend every meeting, but those costs, in addition to our annual dues, do add up. And this is before any pledges to the foundation, or the endowment, or the polio program, or tickets to the wine tasting or the district seminars and leadership conferences. And again, please don't throw anything at me, but to most people, it seems ridiculous to spend $15 on a piece of cake. The Club Managers Association of America commissioned a study to better understand the behaviors of millennials and club membership. They found that for 63% of millennials, the financial obligations of club membership were a barrier to signing up. But that same study found that while cost was seen as a barrier, it actually wasn't the biggest. You know what was? Lifestyle. Like every generation, millennials crave a sense of belonging amongst their peers. But the ways in which we can achieve that sense of belonging has been shifting. Rotary, like many membership organizations, have depended on the fact that social interactions almost always need to take place in person. That in order to surround yourself with like-minded individuals, you sign up for a club where you can physically meet and interact with those individuals. But with the internet, that simply isn't true anymore. We can feel connected to a community anywhere we are in the world by reaching inside of our pockets, our phones. Church services are live streamed. Comments on a single Instagram photo can blow up into heated discussions, and there are dozens of apps built specifically for like-minded people to meet, both as friends and as dates, all online. I mentioned earlier that 84% of millennials surveyed had made a charitable donation the previous year, and that 70% had spent at least an hour volunteering in their communities. I think that local projects are key to attracting millennials because they consider those two important factors, time and money. One of my favorite projects is the School Beautification Project on Rotarians at Workday, and that's for the following reasons. It was free, it was local, and I saw immediate impact. That's why I went to South Africa. Definitely wasn't free, but I was able to be there and to see and experience it firsthand. Hanging up flags. I literally walk out of my apartment and see those flags. I hear people in the community commenting on those flags, and it makes me really proud to be a Rotarian. And polling leads at a school 3 blocks from where I live, where my piano students go to school, where someday my kids will go to school, that I love. I can walk to the event. It's free. I pull some weeds, I socialize, and most importantly, I leave the event seeing the difference that I've made. I feel good about myself. And you know what? I post that. Millennials post selfies. We post pictures of our engagement rings, our babies' first words, first steps, first laughs. We post it all because we want the world to know what we're doing, if what we're doing is good. And Rotary is good. Rotary has everything that millennials want. Networking, socializing, giving back to the community. Let's use this narcissism to our advantage. I have been bragging about our club, the Coronado Rotary Club, the best club, to Rotary clubs all around town. Out of all the Rotary clubs in San Diego, ours has got to be the most attractive to millennials. Our club is incredible. And it's not just the fact that we have a committee specifically dedicated to attracting and retaining new members, our membership growth subcommittee. Our Instagram feed is amazing. We have a Facebook group where members can interact with one another. I've heard rumors of a technology committee developing. We are all over the local media. We've developed ideas such as corporate membership, where people can be sponsored by companies. Our alternate meetings, the epitome of millennial friendly, Tuesday night, $20, cool speakers, beer, have been hugely successful, waiting list successful. Our Care and Concern Committee contacts members who don't show up to meetings to try and re-engage them. Our Interact Club is extremely active and successful. They literally run our meetings and thus are ultimate Rotarians in training. And finally, we already have an entire group of individuals that are part of our Rotary family that are made up wholly and 100% of millennials, and that's Rotaract. Our club is without a doubt looking towards the future, and I just have to say, especially after traveling all over, that I am so proud to be a part of it. Perhaps now we can answer the questions that I posed at the start of my presentation. What is a millennial? We're between the ages of 22 and 37 years old, and we are the first generation to grow up with the internet. Some of us simply don't know life without it. Why do you want millennials in your club? We're tech savvy, we have fresh ideas, we have energy and different perspectives. We're already volunteering in our communities anyway and wanting to give back. But I think the most important and obvious reason is that the survival of our club depends on it. Why would millennials want to be in your club? Networking, socializing, community service, leadership opportunities, just to name a few. Rotary and millennials are a perfect fit. And finally, how do we get millennials to join? Consider time and money and be flexible. According to Rotary International, the #1 reason why members are leaving is because of time and money. And, in my opinion, it's #1 reason why people aren't joining in the first place. Now, 96% of you are not millennials, but I bet that you know one. Talk to them about Rotary. Bring them to a meeting or a social event. Even if you think they would never consider joining Rotary because of time or money or both, tell them to give us a chance. Tell them to ask us about sponsorship opportunities. Remind them that members under 40 have discounted rates on annual dues. Offer to buy them lunch. Also keep in mind that being a millennial is being anywhere from 22 to 37 years old, a huge range, and that half of millennials, those under 30, should consider Rotaract. Think about your legacy. Do you have one in this club? Who will take your place in this room, in these meetings, when you're gone? President Reagan once said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction." Neither is Rotary. Thank you.
Thank you. I did go to one club with her, heard her speak. There was about, I'd say 30 people there when we arrived. she had an issue, they had an issue, she didn't have an issue with the AV, but she just kind of trucked right on through it. And I turned around and looked at the folks behind me. I was kind of sitting up front and noticed there were 25 or 30 people there. About two-thirds of the way through, I turned around, I think it was like 6. So that's what she's encountered and going out into the district. I mean, the clubs that have invited her obviously wanted to hear it. I know the president of the club in Point Loma, Alex Nunes, and he had heard me talk about it, so he really wanted to get her over there. It's a challenge to us, and I think she's mentioned the things we're trying to do. You know, I've had members tell me we don't need the younger people. Let's just get folks who are older and got a lot of money. No. But, you know, you guys have heard the numbers. We lost 400,000 people last year in Rotary, you know, worldwide, and we've got a global uphill challenge. Our club, I agree with you. I think we're doing a lot of good things, but there's always more we can do. And how many hands went up? 3 millennials in this room today. So, congratulations for doing this and being part of our effort. We realize on the alternative meeting committee we don't have a millennial. So I think we might get good volunteer. You're welcome too.
You're up.
Okay.
Hey, you're up. You've been nominated.
Thank you very much. And there's going to be a book for you to sign. I don't know if you can. It'll be a kid that can't read, you know, is in a remedial reading program, and you can put something inspiring in there. But what did you do in Mission Vale? They would not let you join the rest of the group. They wanted you to stay with the music people.
So I worked with the kids in the music room in Mission Vale, and I think I mentioned this to this club before, but music is such a universal language that there was an immediate connection with the kids. I taught them how to sing in solfege, do, re, mi, fa, so, and we learned rhythmic activities by clapping or tapping, and I had so much fun, and they had so much fun, and the music teacher insisted that I come back every day so I could see all the different grades, but it was truly life-changing.
Any questions? Good. I think they're
I gather they were happy to hear you. They didn't stand up for the fun of it. Rotarians won't stand up for the fun of it. They do it because they believe it. So thank you. Congratulations. Okay. She will sign a book, and now I wanted to have Heidi real quickly kind of put the cap on the Everyone a Reader program.
So the cap for the Everyone a Reader is a true and important thank you to each